Hello. The writer George Bernard Shaw once joked that all 19th century Italian operas were essentially about the same thing: a soprano and a tenor trying to get together and a baritone trying to stop them. Okay, it's a bit of an exaggeration, but he was right. There are a lot of love triangles around. But in the most famous example, one of the most famous examples of all, the love triangle is just one element of a really potent dramatic cocktail. In the opera we'll be exploring this evening, the love triangle is combined with an epic family saga with devastating results. Welcome to the Claw Studio here at the Royal Opera House and to this Insight event supported by Rolex. I'm Flora Wilson, and tonight our spotlight is, of course, on Verdi's opera Il Trovatore. We'll be peering behind the scenes ahead of a new production directed by Adele Thomas, which opens here at Covent Garden on the 2nd of June. Later tonight, I'll be talking to members of the cast about their experiences of singing in one of Verdi's best love scores. I'll also be talking to movement director Emma Woods and chorus director William Spalding, and music director of Covent Garden Antonio Papano will be joining us to talk us through some of the many highlights of Verdi's extraordinary score. First, though, please join me in welcoming the director of this new production, Adele Thomas. Hello, Adele. Thank you so much for making time for this. You're right in the middle of rehearsals at the moment.
Yeah, we've had a full day in rehearsals today, so apologies if I look a bit lived in. I might sound a bit lived in as well. We had the chorus in, so I'm sure I probably don't have any voice left by the end of the session.
But we're right in the middle of everything. I think it's fair to say that Il Trovatore does have a bit of a reputation as one of opera's more tangled plots. I think I can put it politely like that. How have you gone about dealing with the kind of complexities of this piece?
Well, I come from a background in Baroque opera, so in terms of plot complexity, this is absolutely no problem whatsoever. But I think working for a long time in Baroque repertoire, you become very used to dealing with the fact that the plot is incredibly tangled, but actually really the most important thing in those operas, and I think it's true of Trovatore as well, is that ultimately the plot is there to allow relationships to develop. So actually the thing that I really love about Baroque repertoire and I love about Trovatore is that the relationships are so incredibly nuanced and unusual and unexpected, and that really is the motor through which the events of the opera take place. So I think that's why we find those plots difficult to summarize. It's like, how would you summarize Hamlet? What happens? It's unexplainable, but what's fascinating is the motor of the relationships and the thoughts that exist in that piece, and that's why that works as a play, and that's why Trovatore works as an opera.
I'm going to let you get away with sidestepping the question of what actually happens.
That was my plan, to just not have to tell the story.
Thematically speaking, though, I mean, are there themes in this opera that you're particularly interested in?
Yes. The first is something that I came into the opera thinking was very important, which is, of course, a refrain that Azucena, who's a character that I'm sure if you know the opera, you'll absolutely know. She's one of the most extraordinary characters in not just opera, but I think in live theatre of any kind. And she says this refrain often throughout the piece. It's mi vendica, which means avenge me. And the accelerating force of vengeance is absolutely one of the great themes of the piece. My early interests were also in the ideas of obsession and the ecstatic, which also exist in the piece in ways that are really beautiful and strange and unexpected. And the last kind of thing that really, it's this time around in approaching the piece that I've become really interested in is the idea of the word, Riccardo will help me. It's the arcano. Arcano, which is a word in Italian that means mysterious and strange. And I think it kind of comes to English through the idea of the arcane. But actually, it's beautiful to think that that original meaning meant the two things in tandem. It's old and it's strange. And that really, I think, sums up my production of the show.
That's so interesting. You mentioned there that, of course, you've come back to this production because it was first seen in October 2021, I think, in Zurich.
Yes.
We've got largely a new cast here at Covent Garden for you. Are there things you're actually changing in the production as well as it kind of returns for you?
I think I'm definitely not the sort of director that puts a production onto people and says, you know, this is what we did last time, do it again, do it like this. You know, the joy of making something again is finding it afresh, because there's nothing like that first time you make something where all of your instincts are new and you're feeling your way around something. It's so important when you remake something that you have to find that energy again. Because otherwise, I think we've all been to productions where they feel a little bit out of the box. And the idea is we have this unbelievable cast who are so smart and obviously they're brilliant singers, but they're extraordinary theatre animals. And so, you know, the joy has been rethinking and reshaping with their instincts as well. And
I think I'm right in saying you really started in as a theatre director rather than opera. Has that changed the way you approach opera, do you think?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, the thing, I still feel like I'm very new to opera, because I think this is my 5th opera, which I probably should be an old kind of veteran by now, but I'm still very new to it. So I'm not sure what the rules are. And I never came through a system where I assisted in opera. And I never really assisted anybody. I had quite a kind of kamikaze career. And a bit of a career that was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing and I'll have a go at it. And it seemed to work out in theatre, and I had a really, great time making theatre. But fundamentally, I think what I've always wanted to do is work with music. And so opera is just a dream come true. And I remember the first day I walked into an opera rehearsal room, and suddenly it felt like, oh, okay, now this all makes sense. This is why I've been trying to make actors sing all the time.
Fascinating. Is there something about the kind of layered timings in opera as well that appeals to you, I wonder? Because, the way that music can slow things down, which I think some directors can find quite frustrating, but it obviously gives you opportunities as well.
I think that the music is what releases you completely. And the discipline for me is obeying what the music is telling us. And I think I don't know. You may hate my work or you may love my work, but I think that what I really love about opera, and what I think I bring to opera, is the fact that I don't come from a background where I know all the rules. So I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but at the same time, I'm obsessional about the music. So my only guide is, and I'm not dismissing tradition, but I'm just saying I don't slavishly follow tradition. I don't slavishly follow what people tell me I'm supposed to think about a piece, but I am obsessional about the music, and I let the music tell me what I'm supposed to be making.
Amazing. All right, I can't resist these pictures anymore that we're seeing behind us. Can you tell us something about what we're seeing here in this production? These are photos from the Zurich outing. What are we looking at here?
Well, the interesting thing about Trovatore is I think we all have an idea of what it looks like. And certainly, when I was making it for the first time, you of course Google the show and you see a lot of images which have very similar imagery that comes through, which is great because it's in the piece. But the predominant visual, what's the word I'm looking for? Like reference point that seemed to be chiming with me was the work of Hieronymus Bosch and the work of Pieter Bruegel and those late medieval, early Renaissance painters.
Which does take us broadly to the period which Verdi and his librettists were thinking of,
Absolutely.
the 15th century.
Absolutely, because I think I had in my head that this was a very 19th century opera, it felt very 19th century. And then actually I realised, oh, this is set in the 15th century, so it felt like a no-brainer to me to scrub away a lot of the tradition of how Trovatore is usually made, and to instead look at it through the lens, not necessarily of a historically accurate 15th century, but a sense of, if Hieronymus Bosch was directing Il Trovatore, then what would he be looking at?
What would Bosch do? Extraordinary thought.
That's my new saying.
I wonder, could you tell us a bit about the costumes that we're looking at here? They're designed by Anne-Marie Wood, I think.
Yes, so they are... With the thing I love about the kind of the period we're talking about in art is that it's pre-Renaissance. So it's pre-perspective, and it's pre-taste. It's pre-everything becoming rational and beautiful and ordered and proportional. And instead it's far more two-dimensional, and I think that has informed the staging a lot. I mean, you can kind of see in the background that the set is basically a staircase. So I had to apologise to the chorus because, of course, they made Carmen on a staircase, and I felt like I might have lost them forever if I made them go on another staircase. But the idea of the staircase is that it forces everybody into a kind of two-dimensional image. So what we're constantly creating are these kind of large scale and then very small scale, because the dramaturgy of Trovatore goes from these epic scenes which are absolutely enormous, and we have, I mean, that's what we're working on this afternoon, which is why I probably look like I've been run over by a train, but we have these enormous scenes. We have 80 people on stage, and then the next scene is 2 people sat on their own, and so the staircase kind of allows us to have all of that.
Fascinating. Those changes, kind of rapid changes of perspective, are so Verdian somehow, aren't they? And I think, am I right in thinking this is your first Verdi production, but you've actually got more in the pipeline? Has he got under your skin?
Yes. Yes. It's a very strange career to be doing Baroque and Verdi and kind of nothing else. But I love him. I think it's interesting. I work a lot with Handel and I work a lot with Verdi. I think both of those composers are men of theatre. First and foremost, I'd say. They are extraordinary at dramaturgy. With Handel, the job is that it's almost like looking at a Chinese painting where you have to stare at it for so long. Eventually, you see the story evolve in front of you. And with Verdi, it's similar, but his dramaturgy is so clear, I think, in the music. And it's a dramaturgy of extreme contrasts. So it's 1 minute, it's heightened, extraordinary, manic, frantic, and then the next second it's, you know, the Miserere Mei, it's sublime, it's quiet, it's beautiful. And certainly the production has attempted to kind of work with the idea of contrast rather than try to find a linear path that kind of quashes everything into one space. It's a bit like these medieval paintings, you know. On the one hand, you've got the Virgin Mary standing above everything, looking beautiful, and in the corner, you've got a dog taking a poo. You know, it's that kind of world. It's the sublime and the ridiculous. It's life.
That is absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. We can't release you yet. I am delighted to say that we've got movement director and choreographer Emma Woods lurking on the edges of the stage. If you could welcome her now, we can actually put the two of you together. Emma, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us as well. As I say, I realise you're in the middle of rehearsals. What does it mean? When I say you're a movement director, what on earth does that entail?
Every production is different, and depending on whether we're tackling Baroque or Verdi. In this instance, I have the most amazing 6 dancers / acrobats / actors that bring us another dimension to the production. They embody the energy and the drama and the danger of the piece, so that we can really sort of pump all the juice out of all these scenes that are so incredibly dramatic. So I'm working with them on choreography, but then at the same time I'm working with the mass movement of 75, 80 people, and you coming on from here and you're coming on from here. But my favourite part is the sort of physical dramaturgy of it, in that we work together to make sense of the intricacies and the subtleties between Leonora and Manrico, that touch means perfectly placed touch at the perfect moment that it hits that beat in the music, and everything just goes like that.
Yeah, just that clicking into place of synchronicity.
Yeah.
Amazing. You two have worked together before. I could tell that without even having talked to you beforehand. I know from the way you talk to each other that you've worked together a lot. Yeah. How did you end up starting collaborating?
Actually, back in the day, someone who maybe no one's heard of, called Oliver Mears, asked me to direct a show for Northern Ireland Opera, and I knew that it was going to be a very heightened, stylized production.
1920s.
1920s, like a silent film. And I knew that I needed someone to come on board to kind of work that physically, because anyone who's seen a silent film will know that there's a very specific language of how people move. And so then I went looking for someone, and Emma popped into my life, and then I never let her go.
Don't I know it?
Emma, is your side of the story different?
No, it's absolutely. We've had the most fantastic journey. We've done things we never thought we would, in a way. We started off with the Così fan tutte, and then this huge exploration into the Baroque operas that we've tackled, making them as physical, visceral that we possibly can. it's a mutually agreeable relationship.
I suppose the interesting thing with Baroque opera is that you've got that whole language of Baroque gesture that's kind of there, whether you want to use it or reject it, it's kind of there already. How do you go about the 15th century, or the 19th century for that matter?
For us, this is, as Adele was saying about the Hieronymus Bosch paintings, the joy about this production for us is working on this two-dimensional level. So I can't imagine the physical language that I've developed is appropriate historically to the 15th century. But what it does give us is these fantastically sort of flat, animated gestures that give you the perspective as you move up through the staircase. It's a great challenge. But thankfully, I have the most amazing group of people to do it. Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about what your dancers are up to, the professional dancers alongside everyone else?
I don't want to throw all the juicy bits out.
Oh, give us a bit of it.
But they're phenomenal performers across the board, dancers, acrobats, physical theatre. Just the physicality and the strength of them are just phenomenal. And we have them crawling headfirst down a staircase. We have them cartwheeling. We have down staircases, somersaulting on staircases. I don't know, that's enough. That's enough.
How extraordinary.
It is extraordinary.
Does choreographing within an opera present kind of specific challenges? I know you, Emma, you started life as a dancer, didn't you? I mean, coming into opera, is it kind of harder or different, at least presumably, to work with people who are also singing in some cases?
Absolutely, and I learned it very quickly on the first opera we did. When you ask a singer to do a particular pose and they say they can't do it because of the positioning, that you have to make these adaptations. And also, obviously, it's not, there's no microphones, there's no projection involved in that other than their incredible selves. But now, it's the part of the job that I love, is making it work. I've gone around all the chorus saying, can you see maestro? Can you see maestro? You know, it's making sure everybody has all the tools in place to be able to achieve overall this incredible sound and picture. So, yeah, I have taken it on board and learnt very quickly that this is what I need to do.
I wonder, with the chorus specifically, I mean, you've got this big body of singers who in some ways sing as a single body, but at other times they are differentiated. I mean, how do the two of you work through that? To what extent are your chorus members kind of individuals?
Oh, massively. That's what's so brilliant about working with the chorus, I think, is when you get the opportunity to kind of let them break out of being a uniform body and to allow them to be 66 individuals on stage is so exciting, isn't it? And luckily this chorus is,
they're grabbing the opportunity to create, it does verge on the grotesque and the extreme at times, and they seem to, like a duck to water, they seem to love it.
Are you saying the chorus is grotesque?
No, I'm not.
I'm going to tell them.
No.
William. They are fantastic, and they seem to be, they're doing an amazing job. They're acting constantly. We are expecting very tight choreography, which is not dance as we know it, but it's more about the way they embody that music and the way that they use every single beat to kind of tell the story very clearly as a unit and then as smaller groups, and they are just phenomenal.
Good to know. One last thing before I let you go. How does rehearsing actually work when there's two of you? I mean, to what extent did you work all the movement out beforehand, actually sort of on paper, working through what you thought you were going to want? How do you then bring that into the rehearsal room and make it come to life?
We usually start a process of working through the piece together quite early, don't we? So it might be about a year before the show opens, so we'll just start to kind of think about what the concept is and then start to kind of research and sift through it and do a first pass of the piece, and that just becomes clearer and clearer, and we just work together an awful lot to come up with the first idea of what the staging should be. Of course, then you have to, as you make the piece, you have to adapt that, and as Emma's saying, you have to consider what everyone needs to do, but we work together very tightly, don't we?
We do. I think sometimes our roles become quite
fluid.
Intertwined.
Yeah, and usually we get your beautiful children to help us find Lego men that we can use to arrange somewhere, and then we kind of make them act out the stories for us so we can see how the staging works.
There's some fantastic documentation of this. Videos with Lego people going...
We definitely need some making of footage here with the Lego men.
With the kids. It's a show in itself.
Adele Thomas and Emma Woods, I will not marry you off to each other, though I'm sure it will be very happy. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and Toi 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 for opening night.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Well, 20th century tenor superstar Enrico Caruso once said that all a performance of Il Trovatore needed to really succeed was the 4 finest singers in the world. So just low stakes there. I am delighted that we can be joined tonight by 3 members of the cast of this production. And please welcome now soprano Marina Rebecca, who performs the role of Leonora, tenor Riccardo Massi, who is taking on the Trovatore himself, Manrico, and also Ludovic Tesier, baritone, who sings the Count di Luna. Please welcome them. Hello. Hello, hello. And Ludovic's still got his hat on. Thank you so much for joining us. Have you also been in rehearsal today?
Yeah.
Yeah. How is it going? You're 3
Horrible.
weeks, I think, from opening night. Horrible. Oh, goodness.
We're constantly dying, you know.
Okay, death after death. Anything else that you can tell us at this stage?
Oh, well, it's interesting, physically demanding, because there's this stair and many
stairs,
steps,
yes.
and we have to go up and down, so it's a lot of...
Are you in training, essentially?
Yes, training,
Yeah.
essentially, like workout. No, but it's a very
Free gym.
interesting vision of the day.
Very good. Can you tell us what you've been working on today, specifically?
Today, in the morning, we'll be working on the
End of Act 2.
the end of Act 3, La Pira, when the chorus comes in.
Yep.
And that was my bit for the day. I don't know what the others did.
Then we did Act 2 with nuns and
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and his aria, the end of his aria.
Right after,
actually,
yes,
in
that's
my
when
crying.
Yeah.
I try to take you away from this
Yeah. Well, you don't
situation,
see.
silly situation, by the way, you know. I'll try anyway, trust me.
You're a baritone.
I'm too heavy, yeah.
I have to.
Of course you try.
So, Marina, you've been in this production already. In fact, you sang in that original outing in Zurich.
Yep.
What can you tell us from a performer's perspective? We've just been hearing from Adele herself, but how has it been for you?
It's been great, actually, you know. Everybody is waiting now to go on stage here because once you have lights and costumes, actually we're going to have different costumes. So it's very exciting. And obviously the show changes completely depending with whom I sing. So here we are, all in one family, and we are working very hard to get it really in the best level that we can. So, I mean, it was already a great show, but now I think it's gonna be amazing also. Also, even more, I think.
Fantastic.
So, yeah.
Riccardo, I mean, of course, you have sung Manrico before.
Yes,
How
I did.
has your character changed, do you think, for you coming to this new production?
Yes, slightly, because I always had this vision. Of course, Manrico is seen as the warrior, but if you look closely, he's like 16 years old. He's very young in the story, and it's a little bit of a Romeo and Juliet situation, a little bit. And rehearsing the role in this vision is making me, rediscover this side that is very young, very sometimes a little bit even stupid, if you want. Like acting without thinking, like the teenagers do sometimes. And I think it's interesting to put this in the character, especially when you've done it other times, only seeing him as a warrior. This side makes you discover a new humanity of Manrico. So it's very interesting for me.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. I mean, Ludovic, you have sung this many times before. What can you tell us about the Count di Luna?
Well, it's a very complicated character. I mean, we see Conte di Luna usually as a kind of stone, a bad guy, and that's all.
He's the baritone trying to stop them getting together, I suppose, in certain respects.
Yeah, it doesn't make him bad, actually. It's quite logical. Look at that. She's just beautiful, isn't it? It makes sense somehow. But what I mean, it's what you see of Conte di Luna, of course, it's just what is happening at the right moment. But I think he's from somewhere, sometime. I mean, he has his own history before they come on stage. And I think it's quite a complicated character because he has his own way, and it was a sort of suffering way. He was losing parents very early. He was probably teached to be a man, to behave like a man. You man, don't cry, etc. We all know that pitifully, and suddenly he's meeting something very special, love. You see what I mean? Because I think he has no capacity to understand, nor to live properly love, and I assume that it's quite difficult for him being touched like that, because it's a sign of weakness for this kind of guy, and that you could sense in the area of the Count, that it is not so easy. He's a bit afraid of it. And of course he's afraid of it, and why is he in love? Because there is Leonora. So somehow for him, she's responsible. Easy, isn't it?
It sounds like you have some real sympathy for the character.
Well, sympathy is, it's a bit much, but I can understand the mechanism that brings, let's say, a young boy, because he was very young when he lost his parents, and when he had to take the responsibility of, being a count. And then I can organize ideas, to understand why he's such an evil person at the time. And usually evil person are person that are afraid of something. You shouldn't be afraid of anything. Then you might be once a good person. I try my best. Not easy, but it is true. He's afraid of everything. A child grown up in a terrible, situation, context, soldier, blood. And of course he was afraid. And then he had to show he's not in this male surround. And that's probably not easy. And then what he's doing is, of course, absolutely terrible, but I try to fill in the blanks, that makes this character not like the image of the devil, but an evolution, a moment in a life.
Fascinating. Marina, when you sang Leonora in Zurich, I think that was your role debut, wasn't
exactly.
it?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about Leonora from your perspective of having only recently met her in some respects.
Well, for me, I have to say it was always, there are several roles which are like stamps, where you just stand and you sing beautifully, hand here, hand there, And Leonora somehow was never touching for me. And then we were working with Adele and, with a group, and we found this exactly the same, what just Ricardo said, this youth, and we understood she's extremely adventurous, She's not the one who will sit home, somebody's coming and there is a trouble. Oh, I go there. It's not that, oh, I'm afraid. No. It's Ines who tells her, no, I go there, I want it, So she's the one who is really not afraid of anything, and who really stands up for herself, She said, I'm going to convent and he's coming here disturbing my religiousness, so how do you dare, And in the end, obviously, she finds a possibility to be useful, because she's always this reason why, he got almost killed. Then always a trouble happened around her somehow. And then in the end, she says, finally, I have a possibility to save the one who I love. Being a victim for her is like being useful, if we can say so, So she's really, finally, I'm going to do it. You go in, and I did it. Something that, it's not just, she's just beautiful, sits there, waits for her prince to come. No, she does something. And somehow we found also very nice, with music of Verdi, these moments of joy and this youth and fun, actually, laughing, tickling, being free, she's very free woman, she will not obey to anybody or anything, and she will do the way how she wants, and I love it.
Yeah, she is an appealing character, female character, even in the 21st century, I think, isn't she? Yeah. She has that kind of core, that strength. That's amazing. Speaking of strength, Ricardo, I can't bear not to ask you, you have some specialist skills, I think, that most opera singers may not have. You know how to handle medieval weaponry.
A
Is
little
that
bit.
correct?
Yes, there's a very. I realize it's a little, unusual background, but that's what I did to pay my bills when I was very young.
You were working as a stunt double,
As
basically.
a stuntman in movies. So yeah,
Incredible.
I have
Wait,
a martial arts.
Still stunt vocally, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite challenging what you're doing.
I know. Well, somebody's got to do that.
Sure.
So, I mean, we were hearing from Adele and Emma about how physical this production is. Do you find yourself drawing on skills you already have?
Well, there's this particular piece in the first act, the first terzetto, and I'm fighting against these monsters, and it's physically very demanding. So at the end, it's a little bit like, but it is the only moment in the opera that is very, very physical for the tenor, and plus this is the fight where I get almost killed, and she thinks I'm dead, and sometimes the experiences I did when I was a stuntman were useful on stage, not just here. For example, when I sing Tosca, the execution, usually directors are quite, happy with the way I get.
You can die really
killed.
impressively.
Well, at least I can use that.
Hollywood credentials as a person who
Yeah.
can die. Incredible.
I actually asked, when I was 26, I think, I filled the form for the Los Angeles Stunt Academy, and I sent it, and they were taking like 100 persons that year, 100 guys, and I was like the number 102. And they said, sorry. But then my life went in a totally different direction, and here we are.
And here we are. Bear this in mind when you see his Manrico. Ludovic, you are one of the world's great Verdi baritones these days. You are, in fact, yes, you.
Yes, you are.
I haven't just made that up. You're busy with Aida here at the
Yes, I
same
am.
time. May I ask how this works? How do you juggle singing one role on stage and rehearsing the other? I suppose at least we're in the same building.
It might be a sort of thing in common, between the two parts. I mean, to be in the same building, because it's quite different sort of vocal stretching, to come from sort of dramatic baritone, as a monastero, and then suddenly you have to challenge this guy, trying to sing beautifully, because it is part of Verdi's art. I mean, he's showing the rivalry even in the vocal way to sing, He's, I try also my best to sing like a Trovatore in the part, and that's quite interesting. So then, basically, I think every singer at this level should sing every day, let's say. So I'm singing one day a show, giving a lot, and then, of course, the day after, it might be better not to sing too much, but still, we have to work on our voice every day, just like I would say a tennis player or golf player, you have to practice. Who said that if I'm stopping one day, nobody notices it? If I'm stopping 2 days, nobody's noticing, but I do.
It was
In 3 days, you begin to notice, So it's better not. And it puts you in a mess if you just stop too much. You know what? I have an information. I love singing. I love my job. So I'm happy, even if it's true, it is tiring. I love to be in the house. I love to be with colleagues like that. It is not a joke. I mean it. And to work, cleverly with Adele, trying to improve what I've done already in a character and to grow it. Because probably after this series, I will be another Count. And it's fascinating. I'm never fed up of it. You
Well,
might be, but not me.
That is good to hear. We're very glad. I've got to bring us back to Caruso. I quoted him before, this silly joke about, you just need the 4 best singers in the world for this opera to be a great success. Are there particular challenges or pleasures in this for you as individual singers? Are there moments where you just think, yes, this is what I'm here for?
Very simple. This comes from bel canto. First, you have to kill soprano vocally, and then she dies herself, you know? So here, really, it's like a big scene, you know? It starts with the last act. So I come, there is a recitative, then there's d'amor solali, and then there is miserere, and then there is like a cabaletta, and then a very little small break. Hopefully it's going to be longer if you sing very long. So and then I can drink a little bit of water, and then we continue immediately with him, you know, a big duet, and then they have a duo, and then I have to die. So it's, you know, it's a very big scene. I would say for me the best is, and the longest is the end.
Absolutely. Riccardo, what about you?
Well, for the tenor, of course, is Di quella pira. Everybody knows that. Very, very challenging. Vocally, you have to arrive there fresh, because you just sang the aria, Si ben mio, and the recitativo at the beginning, and then their little marriage. And then, you know, the messenger comes in and the action begins. So from a certain point of view, it's like, but it's very, you know, exciting to sing it, because you really, the music, Verdi's music, especially in that moment when the music comes, sets you on fire. Like, that is the moment. You give everything you have. So it's very, very, very exciting for me.
Fantastic. Ludovic, Riccardo, Marina, thank you so much. Very best wishes for the rest of your rehearsals, and have a wonderful time on opening night. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've just heard from 3 of the principal roles in this opera, but Verdi was one of the very first composers who really turned the chorus into an important musical character in its own right. And in Il Trovatore in particular, the chorus has a crucial role to play, but also has one of the very best tunes. To tell us more, please welcome chorus director William Spalding. Hello, William. Great to see you. Have a seat. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been busy in today's rehearsals with the chorus.
That's true.
We've got to go straight to the heart of this. Act 2 of this opera opens with the famous Anvil chorus, the Gypsy chorus. What makes it so special for audiences, do you think? What is it that just means it gets under our skin and we all leave whistling it?
Well, I mean, tunes, you know, I mean, it's just a terrific tune, of course. I think a lot of its appeal, though, has to do with what comes before. I mean, you think about all the complication and anguish that happens. You know, you get a story that's told of something long ago, you know, very disturbing images of babies being thrown into the flames. I mean, horrible, you know, almost unutterable, you know, but that is actually said. And then, you know, Leonora hears a serenade outside and runs into the arms of her serenader and ends up in the arms of the wrong guy. You know, I mean, think of how she feels, right? I mean, it's very, very disturbing and very, very unsettling, the whole thing. And what could be, you know, you reach a point where you need some reassurance, something settling, and then you get the chorus just singing. Key, Gita, straightforward C major 4/4 time in unison, and you're ready to just go, you know, everything's going to be fine.
Verdi was very good at serving up those moments of kind of release after tension, wasn't he?
Very much, yeah.
What about from the performer's perspective? I mean, what's really needed to make this number fly?
You know what? Just let it. It's one of those numbers that you just have to let speak for itself. I mean, it's very, very easy to get too brainy about it and to maybe impose special text effects or, you know, there's this trill in there that is just kind of like la zingarella. I mean, it's just an effect. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be a certain speed. It doesn't have to. You don't have to get too academic about it. And I think that the key to that number is just letting it speak by itself, so to speak.
So it's already, the magic's already written into it.
Exactly.
Thinking more generally, how does Verdi approach the chorus? I mean, I just said that he begins to turn the chorus into a character, but what does that mean? How does he write for chorus?
Very well. The standard and correct mantra, let's say, about it is that he writes very well for the voice and for the choral voices. That doesn't mean it's not very difficult at times. It can be quick and a challenge to coordinate, and very satisfying though then when you do get it coordinated. But in terms of tunes, the one we're talking about, and of course the Va Pensiero and the opening of Otello and the Patria Oppressa from Macbeth, the Brindisi and Traviata, one could go on and on,
There's something about the way he brings the voices together, though, isn't there, that does seem to be really special?
Very much, and also it's a certain dialogue with the soloists as well. I mean, this isn't maybe too specific to Verdi, but they sing very little that isn't a reaction to something, right? So they're not just singing some tune. Even the tune we spoke about is a reaction, as we saw. But the count at the beginning of Trovatore, for example, he said, "Okay, here we are, we're the count's entourage, and we got to keep him company," and he says that in a kind of a very matter-of-fact tone, nothing very dramatic about it, and the chorus reacts, "Yeah, he's jealous." And the first word they utter or sing in the whole evening is gelosia, and they sing, the jealousy, the serpents of jealousy rise in his breast, something like that. Very rough translation, but and it's extremely important to get them singing that as a reaction to what he sings before, and that's true really of any chorus part, of really every passage. It differs from the choruses in oratorios and church music and symphonic works generally.
For those of us who aren't familiar with what goes on behind the scenes in a place like this, tell us, how do rehearsals work with the chorus? I mean, because the chorus are permanent here, aren't they? Unlike the principals who come in, you work with them day in, day out, but on very different music. So how do you go about rehearsing for a piece like this, where presumably it's very familiar to the vast majority of them at any given moment?
Yes, well, one thing about that is that while it may be familiar to a vast majority, as you say, there are some who it's either they've sung it 100 times or they're completely new to it, so that but you still have to rehearse it. And it's a new creation each time, even if only a few singers are new, you're making a new thing out of it, each time you approach it. And of course, you're asking about how the rehearsals work. I mean, yes, the whole schedule is a finely tuned machine that has to work like clockwork. If one element of it, starts to malfunction, it can affect other works and other productions that we're working on.
And presumably there's an element of all those cogs fitting together that actually continues within a performance, where you might be conducting as well as Tony Pappano conducting as well from the pit.
That's true, yeah. There are many passages in the operas. Almost any opera contains an offstage chorus part, and there you have to conduct in a way that it doesn't make the maestro too upset, and that's where he's together. I'm together with him, and he's together with the orchestra, and all that. I mean, luckily in Trovatore, that specific challenge isn't too bad because there is no orchestra. There are two offstage choruses: the entrance of the nuns into the convent and the Miserere at the end, and both of them are unaccompanied. So, I mean, I still have to make sure I'm not too fast or not too slow for him, but it's the coordination issues aren't quite as. I mean, really challenging in that respect is Turandot, for example, some passages in Aida, which we've got running at the time.
Of course, the coordination, the magic that goes on behind the scenes that we don't see. William Spalding, thank you so much for coming in for a chat, and
Great.
very best wishes for opening night. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Well, now for some more of Verdi's music in all its sounding glory. As promised, to talk us through some of the highlights of Verdi's extraordinary score, please welcome music director Antonio Pappano and chief repetiteur Susanna Stranders.
Orchestra rehearsals of Berg's Wozzeck at the moment, so which is something so completely different than this. But I'm so happy to be able to speak to you about this opera. It's quite something, actually, and let me tell you why it's quite something. First of all, it's part of perhaps the most famous trio of operas written by any composer. I'm talking about, of course, in Verdi's middle period, Rigoletto, Trovatore, and La Traviata. Rigoletto was a thing unto itself, and he made incredible modifications to structure, to the idea of structure, finding something much more streamlined, that the action always driving forward. I've talked in these sessions many, many times about the idea of the dramaturgy having this inexorable quality. He was able to do that in Rigoletto in a way by somehow compressing everything, making everything essential. Trovatore, interestingly enough, was not a commission. His partner, Giuseppina Strepponi, had translated Gutturria's play, and she said, this is something we got to do. This is our Trovatore. We've got to make this opera. And he was all gung-ho until the two of them went to Paris for discussions with the Paris Opera about their Sicilian Vespers project. And they happened to see Alexandre Dumas Jr. Play The Lady of the Camellias. So he was thunderstruck, and he said, I need to do this. So Trovatore was put on the back burner. But actually Trovatore and La Traviata were written at the same time. Trovatore, Verdi, having been influenced by his own Rigoletto now, said, that's the style. I must go forward, streamlining, finding a new essential quality to the drama. So he asked the librettist, I don't want those closed forms. In other words, the guy walks on, he sings a slow aria to introduce himself, a cavatina. Then the chorus sings a bit, and then he sings something fast, and everybody applauds. And then the next character comes. The traditions of the bel canto. I heard the word bel canto from out there. What did Salvatore Cammarano send him? But exactly that. And he didn't even get a chance to finish it. Cammarano died before. He died just a couple of weeks after having written Di quella pira, the famous cavalletta of Manrico. And a younger man took over, Leone Barrare. So Verdi had been perfecting the old style for many years with all those operas, Hernani, and Luisa Mill, and all those operas. So though he didn't want a libretto that was presented to him, he decided, I'm going to go with it because I can show that I can still, within these forms, reach a new level of intensity and theatricality. Okay? As many of the stories of these operas, they take place in Spain. And there's particular tang, I don't know what it is, and a bravado and almost like you feel the gauntlet being thrown down just with this first gesture. It's like, and that's the temperature of the whole opera. That's it. That's what you're faced with. Now, where this first scene that is launched are the henchmen of the Count di Luna. The Count di Luna is waiting under the window of the woman he loves, Leonora, but he's waiting jealously because he knows there's a tenor somewhere, and in fact, you hear this gelosia. Listen to the chorus there. Here you see. Gelosia, che la vento il petto. The serpents of jealousy are eating his insides. You see, through the use of tremolo, which is a very, very traditional device, but you'll hear through repetition, through the melody, listen. And then it goes, and there's a shock value in this music that is always present somehow, okay? Now, one of the most important things about this piece is that everybody all the characters are telling stories. So the first aria that you come across is by Ferrando, the top henchman of Conte di Luna. He explains the story. Now, if I try to stand here and explain to you the story of Il Trovatore, we'll be here till midnight. So I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to show you. He tells the story of the two sons of the old Count di Luna and the nurse that looked after them. But the nurse, waking up from looking after the younger of the two, saw a witch, or saw a haggard being, you know, who had a menacing eye, and this witch, this lady, this character. Said she was gone. She only wanted to read the horoscope of the young boy, but in her presence, the boy becomes feverish, starts to moan, and becomes sick and ill. Now, how does Verdi tell the story? Look, we start in B major, and he talks about the two children of the Count di Luna. Did you hear? I pointed out this accent on a weak beat, and I also pointed the trills. There are trills everywhere in this, that kind of gesture all over the piece, because there's something lurid about the story, and that Verdi uses the trill, which is a basic ingredient, but used tellingly, it works theatrically. So we've just had this story. Next step of the story, the nurse. She was asleep next to the cradle. Now something happens. At daybreak, she opens her eyes, and who did she see in front of the baby? So now the harmony becomes a little bit stranger. And here you have, listen to those lurid chromatic chords, like a snake there. Who was it? Who was it that was in front of the baby? Silence. Now, I've talked about accents, but listen now. So here we have many elements here. This is fantastic, this music. And you all know it, right? It's in the ear. But did you see the show business of it? The silence before, and then a terrifying gypsy. And she's dark, she's dark and haggard and old. She wore symbols of witchcraft. Now it goes up. Yeah. So by gaining intensity of intervals, we're again telling the next step of the story. He introduces more funny accents. Listen to these. More. Okay, you get the idea, okay? But you see that it's in 3/4, but it's not a waltz at all, but it has a spine, a rhythmic spine, a very masculine spine. And if I had to describe the piece in general, though the two female characters are by far the most interesting, and conceived that, the opera is conceived that way. The general, for lack of a better word, general tenor of the situation is one of masculinity, okay? Now, we get back to the story. She says about the horoscope, that the witch wanted to just tell the story, tell the horoscope. We go back to that benign B major. And now he comes out of the story, he calls her a liar. Bugiarda. Then the baby slowly becomes feverish and his health fails. He's languishing. Languido, affranto, e tremavo la sera, il dì traeva il lamento. He was bewitched. Now, here, another, again, very traditional device is the diminished chord. Dun, 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 that kind of, but it's like a little bit here. He was bewitched. Amalia. That feeling, what you're feeling right there is the essence of this opera, okay? Now, this first scene is one of the most wonderful calling cards for an opera ever written. This first scene is perfection. Verdi creates little introductions for all the characters. And here's the anxious Leonora waiting for her troubadour who's been serenading her. She met him at the tournaments, and he was one of the masked guys, you know, with the lance, that stuff. But listen, simple chords, nothing to chase the horses away, but the accents on the false beats, on the weak beats, tell you everything. 1, 2, and then she sings. I mean, she doesn't sing, but she sings through the orchestra. Gives you an idea of what she's feeling. You know, why isn't he singing? If we talk about bel canto, you talk about either Rossini, Donizetti, and Bellini. In this case, in this opera, it seems that Verdi is tending to pay homage to Bellini more than anybody else, and I'll show you why. You've heard probably that Bellini was very much admired by Chopin, by Wagner, by the way. But listen, this could be out of any Chopin nocturne when she talks about she talks about the dream that after seeing him at that tournament. Listen. You better play the melody though, because I ain't gonna sing to that. My soprano voice is not. Here, listen. See that beautiful skip? And and this time embellished. Listen. And then gorgeous, no? And look, and how beautiful, how natural, and how romantic that sounds, but clearly in homage of Bellini. He then, the aria proper, goes into the minor of, listen. Here, this is more Rossini. Now, Rossini created the color of the mixing of the bassoons with the celli and the basses, and you get this. Boom, 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 boom. The mournful clarinet. And she tells a story about, in the night, the moon was Now, a lot of Leonora's role is, I would call, aspirational. I'm not the first to say that. The great scholar Julian Budden called it that, and it's absolutely fantastic. What does that mean? Well, she's full of desire and love, and look how Verdi paints that. She says, I listen to the sound of his lute, and she has a rising figure, which is so gorgeous and very characteristic of this opera. So it's aspirational, it's going up. He sang melancholy songs, and now another phrase, aspirational phrase, and higher and higher, and the troubadour sang. Fantastic, you see, and it's very interesting. The role of Leonora, the soprano role, which is to balance the other role, Azucena. Verdi called Azucena the main role of the opera. He wanted to call the opera Azucena. He didn't in the end, but he expanded the role of Leonora to create a better balance and gives her phrases like that, which are, I mean, vocal heaven, actually. Now, we're going to meet the baritone in a minute, but not before you hear a little bit of her. That's her slow part of her aria. Remember I talked about slow, fast. There's a middle section where the maid says, no, you're crazy. What are you doing? Don't, this is going to... That connecting tissue music, what I call that, okay? Which leads then to the cabaletta. And then... That trill this time is not malicious. It's her heart a flutter. Now, and her words. Remember in Rigoletto we have Gilda singing, "Caro no me che il mio cor." I can hardly say his name. This is a kind of another version of the stopping of the words in between. She says, nobody, I can't, there's no other, love cannot be described better than this. Sort of is what she's saying. It's an one. There you go. And so the singer that has to do those incredible arching phrases that I played before has to also then be able to sing this kind of almost coloratura, this very, very quick notes. So the flexibility of the singer, you know, I mean, you've probably, somebody's said it for sure, but Caruso always said, this opera, you need the 4 greatest singers in the world, you know. Well, you need singers who can really, really, really sing. And speaking of singers who can really, really sing, I just want to introduce to you Alexei Isaev, who is here. That's an interesting one. Now, the role of the Count, we will find out later that he is actually the brother of the tenor, but that all comes out later. Gasp, you know. But his music, again, an interesting introduction here that almost hovers. And here he's saying, the night is still. And he says, surely the queen is sleeping, but her lady in waiting is not. I see the light. I see the lantern. And he talks about the amorous flame in every fiber of his being. So he's in love with her. I've got to see her. And this is my moment. And then he's interrupted by the serenade of the tenor. It's wonderful. It's wonderfully set up. But listen how psychologically rich it is for the baritone. Now, Verdi's a master of writing the introductory recitative, okay? Here, so here's the introduction. Listen, the bass comes from up, from below, as the melody comes down. It's almost... Listen to this chord. Listen to this. That chord is called the Neapolitan. It's very special, but bringing us back to C major. He says, the night is still.
Immersa nel sonno, certo la regale signora, ma veglia la sua dama.
Now he talks about Leonora and the tremolo here.
Oh, Leonora, tu desta sei, maledice da quelle parole, tremolante un raggio della notturna lampa. L'amorosa fiamma morne ogni fibra. Ti vecchi dopo, e tu intendo, vengo a noi supremo e tal momento.
Is the harp or the lute a troubadour?
Il Trovatore! Io fremo.
Yeah, he's not happy here. He's saying, yeah. You hear that color of voice? You don't hear that every day. That's a real Verdi baritone. That's the real thing, okay? The tenor sings a serenade, which is very interesting in that he was brought up by the gypsies. There was a switch. Have they told you the story? You must look it up. I'm not going to tell you. You must look it up. But he sings a serenade that is at once very lyrical and at once very masculine. Just play the another step. And my only hope is in the heart that I adore. Re maggior, ed ogni re maggior. Now it goes up. Ed ogni re maggior, un cor al trovato. He's not happy.
Io fremo.
That's it. Good. Okay. So, one of the I talked just before about connecting tissue in music. And Verdi, when he has, like, now the tenor will run on. I'm sorry. What happens? Yeah, no, the soprano runs on, that's what it is. The soprano runs on and greets him, my beloved, thinking that he's the tenor. And they mix them up. Luckily, our tenor is nice and tall, as you saw before. Usually, it's the baritone is like this, and here the tenor is like this. And, you know, it's quite incongruous, an embarrassing moment in opera. But here, it's going to kind of work. So, but when all three are, you know, the tenor comes on, you betrayed me, you know, and we get music like this. And this happens a few times in the opera. I'm just going to show you this once. But it's music, yeah, it's music where they speak short, clipped phrases. That's it, that's good, yeah, and usually very fast, okay? And you see, it's very feverish, the energy of this opera, which is then contrasted with ecstatic, soaring phrases. Now, I talked to you about accents and these funny accents, but he's going to sing for you now when he's something that is full of his jealousy now towards the couple. And you'll hear these strange accents. And you also hear how high the roll is for a baritone. Listen to this. 3. Fantastic. Then the other two now have to they have to give as good as they got, right? You know, obviously. And they sing this fantastic trio, okay? We have the scene of the gypsies, and we have the music of Azucena. I'm just going to touch upon this briefly. I mean, that's a whole subject unto itself. She mainly sings in music that is in 3, cha, 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 but not waltz. And always, again, with accents and trills. If you hear her first aria where she's berating the people around her for looking at the fire, waiting for somebody to burn. And she mocks them, their eyes excited by watching somebody being burned at the stake. Here we go. The flame. The trills. The accents. You cry with joy. You see this within, it almost feels like a piece of popular music in a certain sense. Has rhythm, it's got a tune, it's provocative, it's loud, it's soft, it's everything. And she sings a slew of arias in that vein. The second one being when she describes the burning of her mother at the stake. I'll give you an idea just of the accompaniment. And dum, 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 oboe strings. Dum, dum, dum. They brought her to the stake. Oh, Lawrence. She was bound up. I was behind her with my child. Yeah, it's pretty strong stuff actually, and she brings that song that you heard before. Dum, the dim, 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 dum, dum, dum. Now you hear this tempo as she describes, as she the moment where all the people who have taken her, the soldiers and all these people around her, and she's just about to be thrown in, you know. See, by just doubling the speed of it, creates another energy. Just absolutely fantastic stuff. Now, let's hear more of our baritone, because the heart of the opera, though, is this relationship mother and son. And there are two scenes that are just some of the best things in opera, I have to say, because they're perfect in their structure, in the two characters being so different. And he's asking questions about about where he comes from and what's the history of the family, and she's always avoiding his question, not telling the truth, and therefore it's psychologically very, very rich. Now, Leonora has been falsely informed that Manrico, the tenor, has been killed, and she decides to take the veil. Now, when Manrico hears about this, we get more of that that kind of music, and he's going to run, and he's going to, you know, which will happen later when he hears that they're going to burn his mother, and we get di quella pia, but there's more connecting tissue music that cooks the thing before we get to the moment we want to hear, right? Here, he has the same. He hears about this, her wanting to take the veil. He says, God, we killed my rival, but now I've got another rival, the altar. Okay, and there's this wonderful aria where he talks, and it's a real bel canto aria, where he sings about Leonora, and that her smile is radiant to a greater degree than any star could ever be. Yeah, it's one of the most famous arias in the world. We'll do the recitative that precedes it, okay? 1, 2, 3. You can imagine people tiptoeing in and there are a lot of cliches in this opera, you know, sort of operatic cliches. Fine. There's nobody here. I've come in time. Ardita opera, o signor imprendi. It's dangerous what you're doing.
Ardita, e qual furenti amore, d'irritato orgoglio chiesero a me. Spento il rivale, caduto l'ostacol sembrava, a miei desiri. Novella più possente, ella li appresta l'altare. Oh no, l'al fiadale Leonora.
Leonora is mine.
Leonora è mia.
Listen to how simple the accompaniment.
Il vale del suo sorriso, una stella, il ciel raggio, il fulgor del suo bel viso. Il fondi a me coraggio, l'amor, l'amore, il dardo,
Alexei Isayev, Antonio Papanos, Susanna Stranders, thank you so much. It feels almost criminal, I should say, to have to break you off there, but what a luxury to have an opera with simply too many best bits. This has been a fantastic whetting of the appetite. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well, I'm afraid that is all we've got time for at this Insights event tonight. Thank you to all my guests. You can, of course, get tickets to come and see Il Trovatore here on the main stage at the Royal Opera House from the 2nd of June. If you don't already have them, do come. Alternatively, or as well as, you can see Il Trovatore in your local cinema on the 13th of June, or also as an encore performance on the 18th of June. So plenty of opportunities not to miss out. In the meantime, thank you to everyone here in the Claw Studio. It's been wonderful to have you with us. Thank you to everyone who's been watching from home, online, all over the world. It's been great to have you with us for this Insight, supported by Rolex. Good night. Thank you.